Hey, Pastor Ryan, welcome to our Daily Hope Devotional. I am so glad you joined us today, and I just want to bring you some thoughts in light of the circumstance that we have found ourselves in right now. What a crazy time. Well, we are right smack dab in the middle of a historical event, and sometimes we look around and we say, man, what do we do now? And I think the best place for us to look to answer that question is in God's Word. And so I love it in Galatians chapter 6, in verse 9, where the scripture says, let us not become weary in doing good, for in due time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, Paul says, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. As we have opportunity, let us do good. And as I stopped and I have been reflecting upon that and that passage, it really causes me to look at where we're at and say, God, where is the opportunity? I think, like me, you might stop, and as we get honest, we would reflect and say, most of the time, the obstacles that we face, if we will refocus our vision, if we will really be seeking the Lord, those obstacles oftentimes become opportunities for us. And I believe that's what we're in right now. And the way we look at a problem, the way we look at a situation, it's about, do we see it as an obstacle or do we see it as an opportunity? Paul said, hey, don't grow weary in doing well, because if you will hang in there, you will be able to see the opportunities even in the midst of the obstacles. And boy, when we got into this situation, and all of a sudden they said, hey, you can only have this many people in a room, we thought, oh man, this is terrible, what are we gonna do? And then they said, well, you can only have 50 people in a room, and how are we gonna do church that way? And then all of a sudden it's like, we really can't do service at all, but we can still come to the office. And we just kept having all these obstacles. This last week, though, has really demonstrated to me that those obstacles have created some really interesting opportunities that I just didn't see before. And I want to encourage you to begin to look for the obstacles, not for the obstacles, but for the opportunities that are right there in front of us that we might be missing. And I think there's some different ways that we can do that. And I want to talk about this thing of social distancing and what that's all about. And because I realize that for some of you, especially for those of you that are introverts, this social distancing is like your dream come true. This is awesome. This is what you dreamed the world would always be like. People must stay away. And then there's others of us who are extroverts, and this is like the worst nightmare. Like, this is the thing, you wake up in a cold sweat. All of a sudden, you're in an empty room and there's no one else there. What am I going to do? And here's the truth. The truth of the matter is that it's neither a nightmare nor is it a dream come true. As a matter of fact, I would say that if we got honest, most of us are neither purely extroverts or purely introverts. We all have a little bit of that in each and every one of us. So today I want to talk about this thing of social distancing and how is it an opportunity for us. And so I'd like to just suggest to you 3 things that we need to do with social distancing as we focus. Number 1, we need to understand it. We need to take a look at it. We'll talk about that in a second. Number 2, we need to embrace it. And number 3, we need to adjust to it. But those are 3 things that are going to really help us in navigating through what God would have us do in this season of social distancing. Even that phrase is an oxymoron, social distancing. Those just seem like 2 things that don't go together, but apparently they do. And so here we are. So first of all, let's talk about understanding it and what it is. I love the passage in 1 Chronicles chapter 16. It talks about the sons of Issachar. And the sons of Issachar were a tribe, or also in some translations it calls them the tribe of Issachar. And the tribe of Issachar were known as men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. Here's the reality for us, is that we need to stop and look and say, I want to understand what's happening around me. And I want to be able to know and discern and hear from God what it is that I need to do in this new season of opportunity. Now, some things we need to understand about social distancing is that social distancing isn't a punishment. For some of us, social distancing is no new thing. I experienced a lot of social distancing as a kid. I was sent to my room, I was put in timeout, but that was punishment. This is not punishment. This is really about protection. And so we need to understand that about social distancing, because emotionally, punishment can really drive us to a place of fear, where protection drives us to a place of safety. And so understand that this is what this is. This isn't about a relational distancing. It's not about emotional distancing. It's not about spiritual distancing. It's just social distancing. We need to physically separate ourselves from one another for the sake of not passing on a virus. Understand that today and make note of that. I think we also need to understand the fact that that this social distancing that we are in the middle of, and this social distancing that we are experiencing, it is an opportunity that for the church to shine. It is a great opportunity, and that this is not going to stop God's church from being the church. As a matter of fact, when Jesus was talking to Peter, and Peter proclaimed, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," Jesus looked at Peter and said, "You're correct. And upon that rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Listen, if the gates of hell aren't going to stop the church, neither is a little virus. Neither is a social distancing ban. You need to understand that. I've heard people say, will this change the way we do church? Maybe, but it won't change the fact that we are the church. Because that, you need to understand, is not going to change. As a matter of fact, I want to suggest to you today that the church is the most essential industry on the planet, because we broker in hope. Because we offer something that the governments can't give you. We offer something that doctors can't give you. We offer you hope. And Jesus alone has the words of eternal life. He alone brings us hope. So the first thing we have to do is understand it. Second thing we need to do is embrace it. Well, there's a lot of things we should embrace. There's a lot of things we shouldn't embrace. But I want to encourage you to go ahead and embrace this new era that we live in. To embrace the fact that we live in a time when technology gives us the ability to be in close proximity without being in the same physical space. That we can use things like Zoom, we can use things like FaceTime, we can use Teams, and all the different technology that we have. We just need to embrace it. We need to allow ourselves to just say, hey, this is the new normal right now, and we need to use it. I have had great conversations with people this week and have never left my home. And the reason is that I've just chosen to embrace it. Matter of fact, we had a party at our house with all of our kids from all over the country. I have kids in Nashville, kids and grandkids in Nashville and in Medford, Oregon, and in San Diego, and we all came together, but yet I never left my home and they never came into my home. How did we do that? We just went through a Zoom call. And one of my sons said, "I can't believe we've never done this." And the truth of the matter was, we never embraced it. We never just said, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. And I would encourage you to embrace the new normal that we have with us today. And then the last thing I want to encourage you to do is adjust to it. We're just going to have to adjust. Anytime things change in our lives, it will require us to make adjustments. Don't be afraid of making adjustments. The way things used to be are no longer the way they are. And so we're just going to have to adjust. And some things we have to adjust to is the fact that a lot of us are working at home, which means we've got to set new boundaries. We've got to understand that if we're not careful, work will take over our lives. That it's very difficult to have a Sabbath in the same place that you work at. And so you have to create new norms, new patterns, new rhythms in your life. The old roadmaps, the old disciplines may not work for you like they used to. You need to not be afraid to go ahead and create some new things. And we just call that adjustment. Another thing we need to adjust is perhaps we need to adjust our attitudes. that there are some of us that we sit back and we don't like change, and this change is bad, and we're going to complain. Hey, Paul says to the Colossians, do everything without grumbling or complaining. I think we should take that into counsel, and we should do that. Don't complain. Just go ahead and watch your attitude in the midst of all of this. Hey, I think that probably the people that you live with, if you're living with anybody and you're there in their home, they might just appreciate it if you adjust your attitude. They might appreciate it if I adjust mine. If you say, I wonder if I need to adjust my attitude, ask the people you're living with. They'll tell you. Now listen, if you don't want to know, don't ask. But if you want to know, ask them, hey, how's my attitude? What's it like living with me? That's a hard question to ask, but it'll be very insightful for you if you'll ask that question. And if you're full of anxiety, if you find that the changes are causing you to be anxious, I just encourage you to look over at Philippians chapter 4, where Paul says to those people in Philippi, hey, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer, submit your requests to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. Hey, that's a great adjustment to make. Choose not to be anxious. Choose to give it to God and let his peace guard your heart in these times. And the last thing I want to leave you with today is this. I want to remind you that God is not subject to the social distancing ban. That the promise that Jesus made, that I will be with you always, still stands. That the fact of the matter is that when Jesus and that when the Father says to us, do not be afraid, he always follows it up with, for I am with you. And that God is still with you. That there is not a ban that stops God or stops you from coming boldly into the throne room of God. Don't miss it. The opportunity before you is to come boldly into the presence of the Lord. The opportunity is to be still and know that he is God. To understand that when Paul was writing to the Romans and he said, nothing can separate you from the love of God, he was saying nothing can separate you from God because God is love. Nothing, neither height nor depth, nor principalities nor powers, nor things present nor things to come, nothing will separate you from the love of God. And I pray during this time and during this season that you will be really aware of the opportunity you have to get closer to God, and that you'll not miss the opportunities you have to reach out to people all around you and all around this world with the technologies that God's given us. So I pray today that you would make the most of every opportunity, that you won't grow weary in well-doing, but that you would reap a harvest and not quit. I pray that for you today in Jesus' name. I look forward to talking to you again later. God bless. We'll see you around.